So recently Apple released their Scary Fast keynote in which they announced the new line of M3 chips, but you may have missed one of the most exciting parts of the event where at the end they revealed that the entire keynote was shot on the iPhone 15 Pro Max. This was a pretty insane mic drop moment by Apple, and it's definitely already made Apple keynote history. Personally, when I saw this, my jaw dropped to the floor and I thought, of course Apple would do this. And this is because typically they're filming their Apple events and keynotes using high-end cinema cameras like the Arri Alexa. So essentially they used all of the same equipment. All they did was swap out the camera for an iPhone 15 Pro Max. And as we were watching it, nobody noticed. Which a lot of people say that's kind of like it's cheating because even though they used an iPhone 15 Pro Max, they used tens of thousands of dollars worth of other equipment to make it look good. But in my opinion, that actually makes it more impressive because they spent all of this money on all of this equipment and were confident enough in the iPhone 15 Pro Max's image quality to swap it out and shoot the entire thing on that camera. Now, one of the big reasons they were able to achieve this on the iPhone 15 Pro is that they were able to shoot in ProRes Apple Log. Shooting in Apple Log on the iPhone basically bypasses all of the image processing and changes that the iPhone makes to the image in real time when shooting normal video mode, and records in a format that retains as much color information and dynamic range as possible with the intent of processing it in post and making those creative decisions later instead of having the iPhone do it automatically in camera. So it's a really big deal, and if you want to learn more about it, I actually made a video going into more depth on this and I'll link it above. But I think the real discussion that's happening now is whether or not the camera actually matters. And we've already been talking about it a little bit with the release of The Creator, which was a multi-million-dollar budget film that was released in IMAX that was shot on the Sony FX3. So this kind of makes me think, does the camera matter or does the camera not matter? And I think the answer is actually both. So the first thing I think the Apple event being shot on the iPhone 15 Pro Max shows us is that actually the camera doesn't matter. And you can see this in part because they used a lot of other equipment in order to make the image look the way it did. Now, judging by a lot of the behind the scenes pictures and the video that I've seen, they have a lot of support for the iPhone that they used. A lot of the equipment they're using is just a result of being on a large set, and it's not necessarily affecting the image as much as giving whoever is on set confidence in the image that they're creating. So if you're filming by yourself, you really don't need all of that equipment. It's really just there to support the large set that they're working on. The lighting is definitely expensive and high quality, and that's kind of a result of the locations they're using too. Like the outdoor set with Tim Cook, that's a lot of light that they need to output, and so that's one of the reasons why they're using such big lights. But on the set in the computer lab and the other sets, those are smaller sets, and it really comes down to set design and lighting. For instance, here I'm shooting with an aperture 120D with the Light Dome Mini, and so if I were to not use any of these lights, which are actually pretty budget friendly, you would see that the image doesn't look as nice. They used a drone that can carry an iPhone. You can also see that they used the Blackmagic camera app to shoot everything, which makes sense to me because this app has support for full manual image controls. It also has support for using a monitoring LUT instead of monitoring in Apple Log, which is a little bit tough to see. There are a few limitations of using the iPhone 15 Pro Max. You can see the production team use the built-in camera lenses on the iPhone, and that's kind of a limitation because you can't rely on having shallow depth of field to hide stuff in the background. And I think Apple really used that to their advantage in the locations that they chose to shoot in. The location with Tim Cook, it was kind of nice to see the background with the big building. The lab scenes, it was nice and very interesting visually. They were able to draw attention to the speakers by using lighting and not the traditional way of using different cameras and lenses and all of those techniques. Also, the fact that they shot in Apple Log meant that in post, they had all of the flexibility and freedom to draw windows and make fine-tuned adjustments to make the image really pop. So in reality, the iPhone was kind of the least important part of the production process, and they could have used any camera, really. What really mattered was the lighting, the set design, the camera movement, and the locations to really make the image that they wanted to make. And it shows that Apple is really standing behind the video image quality in the iPhone 15 Pro series. This is also incredibly inspiring because I'm literally carrying the same camera/phone that they shot the keynote on in my pocket every day. This means that there are literally no more excuses. You can shoot professional quality projects on an iPhone these days, and it's going to look incredible. That kind of leads me to my second point, and that is the camera does matter. And what I mean when I say that the camera does matter is that in order to make an image that looks really nice, and in order to light and to make all of those creative decisions that Apple made on set, you have to know your camera inside and out. I think that it's much more valuable to know your camera inside and out than to be chasing the highest quality specs and changing cameras all the time. You can get distracted by wanting the highest quality specs when what you really need to do is know your camera, know what makes the image look good, and then to use that to make those other decisions on set like lighting, set design, colors, all of that stuff to make the image really look nice. I think that's exactly the reason why I'm so into iPhone videography. I shot a short film on the iPhone 14 Pro and 13 Pro, and one of my main goals shooting that project was just to see how good I can make the iPhone footage look. So when you think about those two variables of the camera doesn't matter and the camera does matter, cameras these days and the iPhone 15 Pro Max are able to capture incredibly gorgeous images, and there are really no excuses. You can use any camera and they're all going to produce really nice results. But at the same time, if you're constantly switching and chasing specs, you are distracting yourself from what really matters, and that is to know the camera that you're shooting with inside and out and to know how to make a good quality image. I hope that's kind of an encouragement to you that you don't need a high-end cinema camera to make high-end looking images. I'm definitely planning on continuing to use my iPhone 15 Pro Max to shoot projects. I think it's an incredible tool to have in my pocket as kind of like an all-time B cam. It's just an incredibly freeing tool to be able to use in my projects. Thank you so much for watching. In addition to the Apple Log LUTs that I've linked below, you can check out my store at lutcompany.com, where I sell other creative LUTs and also other LUTs for other cameras like Sony S-Log 3 and Fuji F-Log 2, as well as a Super 8 emulation that's really fun to use for DaVinci Resolve. So thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one.